Have you ever thought about how just one different choice, way back at the beginning, could have changed everything for America? Not about rights or states, but about power. What if instead of a president, the United States had a prime minister? Let's take a trip into that alternate America and see what we find. So you have to imagine it. Philly, 1787. The whole experiment is on the verge of collapse. The Articles of Confederation were a disaster, and now these guys are trying to build something that will last. And the one thing they're all absolutely terrified of is creating a new king. And right there, in that moment, that fear pushes them in a different direction. They look at the idea of a powerful, single president, and they say, no way. Instead, they borrow from the British Parliament. And just like that, the history we know veers off onto a completely different track. And this is where it gets really interesting, because that one change causes all these ripples. I mean, could the Civil War have been avoided, or at least delayed? Would America be richer or poorer? And the big one, would this America, today, be more united or even more divided than our own? Let's dive in. Okay, so let's start at that critical moment. It all comes down to that fear of a new monarch. The idea of a president who could just ignore Congress is a deal breaker. So they forge a new path. And they don't call it the United States of America, they call it the Federal Commonwealth of America. So here's the fundamental fork in the road. In our timeline, you have a president who is elected separately from Congress. That's the whole separation of powers thing. But in this alternate timeline, the prime minister is chosen from within Congress. The executive and legislative branches are fused together. Power doesn't come from a single person. It flows directly from the legislature. And right away, this new system starts to mold the country in some really profound ways. Suddenly, the whole story of the 19th century becomes about shaky alliances, backroom deals, and a much, much different path toward the Civil War. So, just to make sure we're all on the same page here, in this system, the prime minister has to keep a majority in Congress happy. If they lose a key vote, what's called a vote of no confidence, poof, the government falls. They're out. It's a system that's designed to be super responsive, but it can also be, well, pretty unstable. And you can see exactly how that plays out here. In 1820, the Missouri Compromise isn't just a debate. The controversy actually brings down Prime Minister Monroe's entire government, and that sets the tone for everything. To survive, leaders have to constantly make deals, forming these fragile coalitions. This endless horse trading means the biggest issue of all, slavery, just gets kicked down the road again and again, delaying the Civil War all the way to 1868. And when it's over, you get a bipartisan unity government, handling Reconstruction, leading to a much more moderate and maybe less effective outcome. All right, so what does a system like this do to the economy, especially as America hits the Gilded Age? Well, without a strong president who can just veto anything he doesn't like, American capitalism starts to look very, very different. You can really see the domino effect here. In our timeline, Andrew Jackson killed the National Bank. Here, he never gets the chance, so the bank survives and becomes this major force for economic planning. Regulation gets going earlier and with more teeth. Instead of one trustbuster president, you get these powerful bipartisan committees, kind of like the British Royal Commissions that go after monopolies. The whole economy ends up looking a lot more like the systems in Europe. And that different mindset doesn't just stop at the borders. When the Spanish-American War breaks out, Prime Minister Teddy Roosevelt's government doesn't have the power for a straight-up land grab. His coalition won't support it. So instead of annexing places like the Philippines, they focus on what he calls economic diplomacy. America becomes less of an empire and more of a global trading partner. But there's always a flip side, right? That flexibility becomes a huge weakness when the Great Depression hits. Prime Minister Franklin Roosevelt tries to pass his version of the New Deal, but his coalitions just keep collapsing under the pressure. I mean, get this, 5 different governments fall in just 6 years. So yeah, you can pass laws quickly, but good luck getting any kind of long-term plan to stick. So after all that chaos from the Depression and World War II, the American system kind of settles into a new normal. The post-war years aren't defined by powerful, charismatic presidents. They're defined by committees, consensus, and a whole lot of negotiation. And this culture of consensus leads to what is maybe the single most staggering difference in this entire timeline. The Manhattan Project is still secret, but there's a bipartisan committee overseeing it. And when it comes time to use the bomb, that committee votes against dropping it on a city. Instead, they stage a demonstration on an empty atoll to force Japan's surrender. There is no Hiroshima, there is no Nagasaki. That same logic plays out again later.
Look at this number, 20,000. That's how many American lives are likely saved when, in 1968, the House of Representatives just votes to stop paying for the Vietnam War. There's no powerful president to keep the war going without congressional support, so it winds down years earlier.
Okay, so we've seen a lot of the benefits, but there has to be a trade-off, right? And here it is. The economy is steadier, but it's also slower. In the 1980s, our America had this massive boom, with growth over 3.5%. This America, it chugs along at a more modest 2.5%. You get more economic equality and a stronger safety net, but you lose some of that explosive free market dynamism. So let's fast forward. What does this place actually look and feel like today in our alternate 2026? This really sums it all up, doesn't it? Politically, things are less polarized, but governments are always shaky, held together by these fragile alliances. The economy is more equal, sure, but you don't have those world-changing giants like Apple or Google. Innovation is more state-led. Society feels safer with stronger unions and public services, but everything is just a lot more bureaucratic. It's a calmer, more equal America, but maybe a less exciting one. And that brings us to the ultimate amazing irony. After more than 200 years living under a system designed specifically to avoid a powerful leader, what are people starting to say they want? A directly elected president, someone who can cut through the noise and just get things done. It just goes to show you, no matter what system you build, the argument over how power should work, well, that never really ends.